Okay. So,
Yes.
are you okay to start now, or do you want some a
Yes.
little? Yeah.
Yes, sure. I was actually ready. I was just waiting for your call.
Oh, excellent. Good stuff. Okay. So,
Yeah.
I was wondering, so could you give us a background of your work with Climate Without Borders, sort of like how it
Mhm.
started and what your role is there?
Okay. So Climate Without Borders was started last year in June. It was launched last year in June. And the founding member and me and a few of other weather presenters, we met, or rather we have been meeting in forums that were organized by the Met Office in France. So the Met Office in France felt it would be useful to get together meteorologists who are weather presenters once a year, and then they discuss how best to communicate climate change, how to communicate in a way that moves the public to action. So every year they have a forum that's 4 or 5 days, and it's usually in Europe, in France, in Italy. So that's how most of us met. And the founder of Climate Without Borders, who is Jill, thought it would be good to start this organization where we could get partnerships with governments, with universities, to be able to better communicate. So how I came into the picture is a couple of years back, the World Meteorological Organization was holding training for weather presenters, and my bosses suggested that, or rather forwarded my name for me to participate in the training. So me and two colleagues of mine participated, and then we got certification. So we were authorized, like, to communicate on behalf of the department on weather and climate stuff. So following that, then I got invited to one of these forums for the weather and climate in Paris, and then that's how I met everyone. So from there, then Climate Without Borders was started.
Okay, great. And so
Yeah.
how does that sort of how does your role at the Kenya Meteorological Service sort of fit in with your work at Climate Without Borders?
hmm So at Climate Without Borders, because we are a network of people from all around the world, everyone would like to report on, like, very significant weather and climate events happening in their vicinity as well as around the world. So with my work at the Kenya Meteorological Service, I have access to impacts of probably adverse weather, and so I share this with all my colleagues, and they share them with their media. So if they need a better explanation of why a certain occurrence is probably extreme, or if we think it's related to climate change, then I can be able to offer that based on the background information that I have of the weather and climate in East Africa and Kenya in general.
Excellent. Okay. And the thing is, so when you talking about that, we work a lot with meteorological services, and a big issue that they tend to come up against is how can they get the data that they collect from their new technology and all that kind of stuff, how can they get that to the end user?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you solving this challenge, and how do you see that as part of the work that you do?
Okay. So we're like, I would say we're like a bridge between the science and the people. And so um, you probably, because you work with active scientists, you probably know that we have jargon that we use, and a lot of the time it doesn't really matter to us what people think of it. So we understand it within our small circles, but it's not really useful to the end user. So what we've had to do is, like, learn, or we've been trained on how to communicate and to tailor make information so that it's useful to the end user. For example, a farmer and maybe policy developer would want the same type of information, but how we package it for the farmer would be very different from how we package it for a policy maker. So we've been trained on how to do that, how to communicate without watering down the main message, so that it's useful to the whole spectrum of our users. And then something else is the media that we use. Initially, like Kenya Met just had the website. So we would just put information on the website, and whoever can access, then that's the only person who would get it. And then we'd also put out information, send out emails to a mailing list that we have. And we realized that a lot of people would make decisions without incorporating weather information and then later blame us for that. So we thought if we can have a better presence, then it would be, we would remove, or rather, plausible deniability. We've put it out there so at least people can be able to use it. So that's why we decided to use social media. We tried getting back on television, but there's a lot of bureaucracy and politics with us being on TV, so it didn't really work out. But we decided to just focus on social media, and right now we are working on having a YouTube page where we can have proper weather presentation regularly.
Excellent. So if let's say, for example, there's another country who, let's say, financially isn't in the best position, what would be sort of your top recommendations to sort of solve this challenge for them? What would be maybe your top 3 things that you would say they could do sort of soon and would have the most impact?
I think finding out who their biggest users are would be very important. And then I may be belaboring this point, but I strongly believe that social media right now is very strong in terms of its reach, and especially for the kind of users that we have. So I would recommend using social media. It doesn't have to be elaborate or anything, but just finding a way of putting out information to the masses.
And what channels would you recommend? So when you've said YouTube is one. So particularly, let's say in sort of West Africa and East Africa, what do you think are the best channels to use?
Twitter for us has been the best. We have almost real-time interaction with our users.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as well as Facebook, but Twitter I find to be almost real-time. And people are willing to interact with us on Twitter. And we also have an Instagram page, but that is less interactive.
Mm-hmm. So
Twitter and Facebook are most interactive.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, that's really useful. So yeah, I mean, you said that you when you went to these sort of conferences and all these kind of things, you're looking to work with other people, and with governments and all that kind of stuff. So and create partnerships. With the work that you do, if let's say, for example, someone who's reading this, let's say listens to what you've said and says, "Yeah, I'm really interested in that." Who do you work with, and sort of how would they, let's say, go about working with you, or vice versa?
Okay, for National Hydrological and Meteorological Services, I think the World Meteorological Organization would be a perfect place to start. For example, we work with WMO both in Climate Without Borders and as KMD, as the Kenya Meteorological Service. So WMO provides us with support within Climate Without Borders in getting information out. So sometimes it consolidates. We have members, staff of WMO who are members of Climate Without Borders or partners of some sort. So they help us put information, consolidate information better to be able to present it to the public. I think that would be a good place to start. And I think WMO is mandated to help the Met services, national Met services. So that would be a good place to start. And for Kenya Met Service, I've already from our experience, I've seen that working with, we work very closely with the Red Cross. And so they have very wide reach, and they respond to extreme events when they happen. But of late, we send them information of anticipated weather extremes or something like that, and then they put it out already. So they have larger following than we have. So they have very wide reach, and they respond to extreme events when they happen. But of late, we send them information of anticipated weather extremes or something like that, and then they put it out already. So they have larger following than we have. So this enables them to be able to communicate better. So they put out information that we have sort of curated for them. So Red Cross would be also something good to work with. We also work with the university. Here we have the University of Nairobi, where most meteorologists are trained. So how we work with them is in identifying user needs. So because they have the staff and the capability to organize sort of surveys, then we work with them on that, and then we implement whatever findings that they have. So universities also are an important, or I'd say a useful partner to have for most med services if they have within their countries.
Okay, because actually, yeah, that's if we could go back to particularly, let's say your work in the KMD. A lot of the people that we speak to, obviously, they've got issues with training, and obviously, a lot of them have trained, let's say, in majority of actually the ones we speak to, they were trained in Reading, in the UK, which is quite famous for its meteorological education. But in terms of keeping their staff educated and stuff like that, what does the KMD do in terms of like training to keep your staff up to date with how to use the equipment, how to deliver the best services, what do you do particularly?
Okay, so we have, like you say, we take advantage of whatever training opportunities that are presented to us. For example, I know there is a program where every year a staff member goes to the US, the African desk, and they spend about 4 months there. And then when they come back, the African desk of NSEP. So when they come back, then they train meteorologists, fellow meteorologists. So yes, actually we have one sort of training scheduled for next week for a colleague of mine who attended, who was at the African desk for 4 months. So he comes back and he teaches us whatever new he saw that we can be able to implement in our work to make our work more accurate and to put out stuff faster.
Oh, excellent! So you sort of send out one person, and then that one person can filter it out between the whole department.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
interesting.
Oh yeah, I was going to say we have a training center, a WMO training center. It's called IMTS, and every Thursday they hold a seminar. So if someone went and got trained, every Thursday we have someone presenting either a report of a training that they attended or a short training of staff of the things that they learned. And sometimes we have visiting scientists. So every Thursday afternoon from 2 p.m., then all staff are welcome to attend the sort of briefing or training. So for those, you can really come out with a lot from such sessions, especially if you're directly involved in a specific area of work that was being talked about.
Excellent. So is that, sorry, did you say the WMO sends someone to your training center?
No, we have a training center, and sometimes we have visiting scientists. Maybe they're around for a project or something. So they can present an overview of their work, and all staff members are welcome to attend.
Okay, and yeah, so when you say sort of scientists who come to the your training center, do you have other sort of people like that? So, for example, do you have I don't know if sort of experts in maybe companies that would be the best people to talk to about like maintenance, let's say, of equipment, or do you have sort of other people from other departments around maybe sort of East and West Africa as well?
Okay, I must say I haven't attended any that involved like training on instrumentation, something like that. But what I know is sometimes we have, if we have a visiting scientist from even a neighboring Met area, and like even Uganda or Tanzania, and they have best practices in a certain discipline, then they give a talk, a seminar on how they do it. And then if we feel it's feasible for us to take it up, then we can take it up.
But so, what would you say? I mean, if you can, what would you say if there was a country that wanted to get closer partnerships with their surrounding um, countries? What do you think the best way to do that? Is it to have sort of training initiatives that you collaborate on? I mean, is it as simple as just picking up the phone and asking? What would you say?
I think training would be best, and like training initiatives, and I've seen it happen actually. Like the WMO training that we had on how to be better communicators was organized for Southern Africa. So all the Southern African countries sent candidates to come to Nairobi, and then they were all trained together. So I think it's easier if countries can collaborate on training. That way it saves also on cost of whoever will be training. And then an advantage that I think we have as Kenya is we house ICPAC. I don't know if you know of ICPAC.
No, I'm not actually. If you know.
Okay, it's an IGAD climate prediction and application center. It's for the IGAD region, Great Horn of Africa. So they coordinate weather and climate activities for the Great Horn of Africa. And a lot of the time, we have scientists coming for trainings from all those countries to Nairobi, and scientists or meteorologists from my department usually take part. So we kind of really benefit a lot from that kind of collaboration with the rest of the region.
Okay, that's interesting. So actually, you briefly alluded there to saving costs.
Yes.
Now, so again, this is another thing. So with countries again that are sort of not financially gifted, I suppose, because Kenya's probably one of the best, I would say, in Africa. In terms of yeah, yeah, try, yeah. But in some of the other sort of more financially challenged countries, um, how could they, I guess, improve their practices and get up to your level? I mean, yeah, so you've already said sort of like joint training, but are there any other things that you would suggest that they could, I guess maybe collaboration would solve some of those issues, and maybe how they then approach organizations, like the World Bank or like the WMO. Would you say together, if they came together in partnerships, they would have more sort of power, I guess, and could negotiate better?
Yes, I believe so. And I think if it's easier for people to invest in you even financially if they see the benefit that they themselves are getting from the investment that they're making. So, for example, if they were to even approach businesses or um, big companies to support or to facilitate a certain training, then if they package their request in such a way that these companies will also benefit, then I believe it's easier to be able to get funding. And I have an example of, for example, solar energy. If solar companies or companies that provide solar energy as a business can be able to see the advantage of training meteorologists to sensitize people on the benefits of using solar energy, both benefits. So sales go higher, and then people are better educated, and the environment actually is conserved. So if they can be able to package the information in such a way that it's mutually beneficial to the one providing the money and the ones benefiting from the training, I think that should go a long way in helping them maybe secure funds for training or implementation of programs that will benefit them.
So, I mean, that our readership is sort of Met directors, technical directors, technical staff. Um, is there any sort of thing that you'd like to sort of finally say? If they're interested in what you're doing, or like any sort of final thoughts on what we've spoken about?
Yeah, I think it's important for. Oh, you said your readership includes the Met directors. So getting ideas from all your people is very important. I've seen initiatives work because our director was willing to listen to like really early career scientists or low level people, and some other people would not be willing to listen. So there's a lot of novel ideas that can be got from listening to your staff. I think that's So that's a good suggestion that can be useful. And collaborations. I feel collaborations are the way to go in the future, because there's some things that we do very well that someone else doesn't, and there's something that they do very well that we can learn from. So collaborating within regions is very useful. And I think communication also. For me, because I'm in communication, that's the big thing for me. Like, we really need to put out what we are doing, because we might just end up with very good research and then it doesn't get out, so it doesn't benefit anyone. You publish a paper and you feel accomplished in your small corner, but it doesn't really impact on the general population. So if we can invest, if Met Services can invest in communication, dissemination of the information that they come up with, will go a long way to improving how people view our output and how we can be able to impact people.
Okay, yeah, that's that's excellent. Yeah, I actually just wanted to say, so we'll end it here, but I just want to say as well. So, in terms of the communication, if you do, so this newsletter is one thing we do. I've actually, me and Tom, very recently, I know LinkedIn maybe isn't such a big thing in Africa. I'm actually not sure. I might be being ignorant on that, but we just started a group. Yeah. So we kind of hope that is where, if you did have a paper, if that's and anything you ever wanted to say, feel free to say it in there. And you can reference any of us, and you can put it in there, and also email it to me, and I'll put it in the newsletter. Like, absolutely no problem at all. But yeah. So but yeah, that was excellent. I just wanted to add that it's there for you to use if you want. I'll be posting the transcript of this interview in there as well.
Okay. All right, that would be interesting. I've never used LinkedIn in that way. So it would be interesting to see how more I can be able to use it.
Exactly.
And
yeah. I mean, I'm hoping it will be. It's very like. I mean, I don't know. Are you familiar with like Facebook groups?
Facebook groups, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not hugely versed on it. I've sort of been involved in them a couple of times, but it's a very sort of similar thing, where people just post stuff and then everyone can talk about it. I think we hopefully will as well move it to Facebook at some point in the future as well. But yeah, I mean, again, yeah, feel free to do what you like and start a conversation. That's no problem at all.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Patricia. Yeah, it was amazing talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you too.
Lovely, Patricia. Okay, have a good day, and I'll speak soon.
You too. Bye. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.